have today a contrast, two readings. One is from Luke and one is from John. Anyone pick up the kind of the conflict between the two of those readings? Anyone pick up the conflict between the two readings? No one. This is going to be rough. Liz.
Sorry. Okay, I know I'm new here, but I'm going to try. Okay, so in Luke, he's saying the kingdom of God is within you, and in John, he's saying my kingdom's from another place. So that's the contrast.
I love you. I didn't even know you. She's new here. First time in our church. Puts you all to shame. That's really interesting. In Luke, Jesus says the kingdom of God. And what is the kingdom of God? We really have a description of that. It's actually a Christmas reading. But if you look at the reading from Isaiah, the reading from Isaiah describes the kingdom of God with things. The natural world is different. The wolf lies down with a lamb. A little child is with a rattlesnake. That doesn't happen. So the kingdom of God is that, I would suggest, this place of peace. It may not be something that we experience by nature. Place of peace. And Jesus says the place of peace is within you. And then he says to Pilate, look, my kingdom is not of this world. In one sense, you could perhaps interpret that by saying my kingdom is not necessarily by nature. But he says my kingdom is beyond us. See, in this contrast, the kingdom that is within is also the kingdom that is beyond. We usually think of it as heaven. When someone dies, they're at peace. But yet Jesus says that place of peace is also within. Think of it as the beyond, which is within. Now, if you're like me, you say to yourself, there's this place of peace within me. I'm going to use this side of this actually. This place of peace is within me. Yeah, right. Give me a break. And so what I would suggest to you is think of it this way. Bear with me. You got to work with me on this. Is that there is this place of peace within us. But instead of experiencing that place of peace, what happens is we layer upon it all of these different layers, thick layers of anxiety and worry. So the place of peace remains buried. So buried that if you say to me, John, be at peace, I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? You're crazy. That's some kind of religious stuff that I just don't get. And that's really interesting because when Paul in Philippians describes this peace, he calls it a peace which what? Surpasses all understanding. Kind of this mysterious thing. And as far as I'm concerned, if it's mysterious, I don't know what it's all about. And therefore, it is irrelevant to me. Because peace for me means dealing with these levels of anxiety and dealing with all these matters that arise. Then when I deal with these matters, maybe I'll be at peace. But I've got to deal with all this stuff. And when all this stuff gets resolved, then there's going to be peace. I remember a woman, you might remember her. She had cancer, ovarian cancer. Is there any peace? No. Ovarian cancer is really the survival rate is very low. She had surgery for it. After surgery, there is maybe a momentary peace, and then there is hope that somehow or another it goes into remission and disappears. And for a year and a half, she was just a completely different person because she survived this, and she's still living 20 years later. She's doing really well. And for a year and a half, she survived this, and she felt close to God, and she felt this kind of peace within her. And you could feel it when you were around her. She was a completely different person than before the surgery. And she lost weight, and she was taking care of herself, and she was happy and joyous, and everything else. And you know how long it lasted? It lasted about a year and a half, and then it was back to the old way. And that layer of anxiety was resolved until the next stuff came up. I remember when I was teaching, one of my students came up to me and said that his father told him this story. I taught a philosophy of religion class. And he said that during a banquet, his father was sitting next to one of the great players from the Red Sox. And this player from the Red Sox told the father a story which the son relived to me. He said that he was the player that hit a big hit in one of the playoff games, and the Red Sox won the game. I'm not going to mention his name because this gets recorded. And he said that he got this hit, and he came back to the dugout, and everybody was celebrating with him, and it was a dream come true. I mean, that's the fantasy for a lot of baseball players, for a lot of people, to be the big hero. And after the game, he was sitting in his locker room, and his comment was this: "Is this all there is? Is this it?" So in his case, you could look at this piece that is here, right? And so he fulfills the dream, and it lasts for a half hour. For that woman, it lasted maybe a year or 2.5, maybe a year and a half. For the baseball player, it lasted a half hour, and then what happens? It's just the next layer of stuff and anxiety that has to be dealt with. And here's the issue. The issue is, as I would suggest to you, that this is the way we live. This is how we have gravitated in our day. Psalm 65. This is how I have gravitated out of 65 years. This is it. This is the style of life. This is my day. This is my week. This is it. It took me 65 years to get here, and this is where I've gotten to by nature. So if you are 50, you've gotten here at the age of 50. This is the way we have gravitated by nature. It's the way it is. And in this scenario, I think we look for what I would call relief. We look for a little bit of relief. We deal with all this stuff, I need relief. So what happens at the end of work, give me the martini. And that becomes my relief. At the end of work, I may get on the internet and buy something. That becomes my relief. I look forward to the weekend where there's a quote-unquote break. That's my relief. I look forward to vacation where, I can have vacation and be free. That's my relief. So we live with this scenario, and then or it could be, I'm unable to stop eating ice cream. So the ice cream becomes the relief from this. We all have our relief mechanism. And that's what peace is. I have peace within me. Yeah, I have peace with ice cream. My peace is the martini. My peace is the vacation, like buying something, shopping. That's how it works. I think that describes what life is like for a lot of us. Supposedly there's peace, but we deal with all this other stuff. We look for this relief. I know someone who lived this way, and they turned to the drink. Now I'm going to talk about booze for a minute, but think of this as a metaphor. Think of it as a metaphor. Don't dismiss it and say, well, I don't struggle with booze. That's fine. Think of it as a metaphor, as a symbol. Relief was the booze, but unfortunately they had a predilection for drinking too much. There's peace within you. No peace. So from this whole natural, again, we gravitate to this by nature. Against this whole, with this whole natural development, there was the search for relief, and then there was rehab, which is a complete break from this whole way of life. A complete break. And then there was new life. Now this person is sober. They go to meetings once or twice a day. There's the support group. They have a mentor that they talk to once or twice a week. They go to a therapist. They have their own meditation practice. They make sure they exercise. They do not hang out with any of their old friends. They are at peace. New life. Sure, they deal with the stuff that we all deal with. But they deal with it from a place of peace. They don't deal with it from a place of happiness. This is not happiness. This is a deep set of peacefulness that comes comes from within. Still have to deal with the stuff of life, but deal with it from a place within of peacefulness. Over here, I have a tendency to get jerked around by all these layers. Over here, I live out of that place. What did it take to get from this to this? This where we gravitate by nature. This where this person lives in that place of peace. What did that take? I want you to step in that. It's very easy. It's very simple. It's not something we necessarily want to hear. But what did it take for that person to get over here?
Pain.
Pain. Yeah, pain was the motivation. And what did the pain lead to?
Surrender to powerlessness.
Surrender to the way it is, the truth. I am powerless. Surrender. But after the pain and the surrender, where did it take after that?
Redemption.
What?
Redemption.
Redemption, yeah, that is part of the pain and surrender phenomenon. But there's something else. Ooh, this is really interesting because no one's getting it.
Work.
Who said work?
Work.
Work. What is your church? It takes work. We don't get from here to here without doing the work. And it's very interesting. During the fall, we did the B1 emphasis, which is the Thanksgiving emphasis, and each day our vision was to write down 5 blessings from the previous day. Being thankful is not our default option. It doesn't come naturally. We have to, keyword, Liz just mentioned it, we have to work. Now, I'm not going to ask people to raise their hands, but think about it. Writing down 5 blessings of the day is not a whole lot of work. Was it easy to remember to do those things? No. And so sometimes we forget to do it, or sometimes we put it off because it's not natural. So we have to work to get to that place of peace that is within. And that's what this person did. Through the pain, which becomes the motivation to surrender. Through the pain, through the agony, they were moved to do the work. If they didn't do the work, would they have ever gotten here?
No.
You have to get over the guilt.
It's part of the work. Spiritual work is getting over the guilt. Yeah, sure. Getting over the shame. Right. But it takes that work. It takes work to say, I'm not going to live this way. I'm going to go to the meetings. I'm going to talk to my mentor. I'm going to maintain that prayer practice. I'm going to do the exercise. I'm going to watch my nutrition. I'm going to hang around with people that build me up. It takes work. So this place of peace is there within us. And so the movement for us is to, at some level, let go of these layers of anxiety. As the prayer was that we just prayed, to watch them as clouds in the sky. That we might live out of this place of peace that is within. But what does it take to deal with all these layers of anxiety? It takes work. Does it come naturally? No. It takes work. So what is the work that is needed or that is helpful in that process to move from all of this that I carry with me all the time, to move from this, to live out of that place of peace? Now this place of peace, I would call it a deep sense of serenity. It doesn't mean that I don't worry about stuff and I don't care about stuff. It's just moving. It's not happiness. Happiness is too kind of a shallow concept for me. And Jesus calls it this place of peace, this kingdom that is within. So what is the work that we do to live out of that place? Who's in here? John and Carolyn. Don't let my teaching this. John and Carolyn, what is some of the work that we do that I might live out of that place? You've been involved in this, by the way. Yesterday morning.
Meditation.
Every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. What is it? Meditation is one form of work.
Tai Chi.
Tai Chi is another form of work. It is a pause, it is a focus on the breath, it is a focus on this peace, and it is a release of all this other stuff that the breath can open for me, this place of peace that is within. Is it easy to maintain a regular meditation practice? The uniform response from everybody yesterday morning is that's the hard thing to do, to maintain a regular practice. But at least 4 of the people yesterday said that in the midst of crises, they have taken the time to meditate, to focus on God's presence with them. And it was Peter Bowman, as well as his brother, both said it really made a difference. They could deal with this and live out of this. It is the work in here that gets them over here. But we just don't get here. We just don't go to church and get here. It doesn't work that way. It takes work. So Tai Chi and meditation are 2 forms of that work. It could be exercise programs. It could be, I think a really important aspect of this is to be in some kind of support group. To be with other people who will encourage you, that encourage me. Because it is very difficult to go it alone. And sometimes support community becomes important. There's a dinner the other night that presented itself as kind of a support group for the people who are there. Saturday morning becomes a support group. Wednesday morning Tai Chi becomes a support group. It's an opportunity for us to encourage one another because doing this work becomes extremely difficult all by ourselves. But the point is, this beyond peace that Jesus says is within, it is there. But to get there, we have to do the work because by nature, we don't live out of that place. It's, again, the example I use is the Thanksgiving emphasis. We have an opportunity this week. We passed these out last week and they're also available this week. Here is the work to write down 100 blessings from the past year. It is the work of Thanksgiving. And I can almost guarantee you it'll transform the way you experience Thanksgiving Day. Because suddenly we are thinking about all the blessings and all the goodness in my life. And it takes, keyword, work to remember 100 things from the course of the year. That does not come naturally. Naturally, I'm inclined to complain. I know you're not like that. I will complain, find faults. Are you kidding me? That is my nature. That's what I live. It takes work for me to get to this place of peace. It's almost guaranteed that if you do the work, that you will experience an element of peace. You know, life is pretty good. I want to complain. Gee, look at all the good things that have happened. I want to look at all the problems, look at all the blessings, which I don't necessarily see by nature. But I can do the work to live out of this place. And the beautiful thing about it is if you have family or friends that do this, and you share your observations with them, suddenly you begin to remember, gee, I forgot all about that. So it's a wonderful way to build connection with other people, again, that support group kind of mentality I mentioned, as well as to do the work to get me to that place. The point here is that peace is there for us. It's there for us. That's the promise of Jesus, that peace is there. That the presence of God is within us. By nature, we get wrapped up with all those layers. But I can do the work. And not all of us will. Let's be real about it. I can do the work to live out of that place. It doesn't mean all the anxieties disappear. But I can deal with them in a different way, with a different spirit. So I encourage you, take one of these, take them for your family. If you the 60 days of Thanksgiving emphasis that we've been doing. Peace is there, and it's a free gift. It's given to everyone, and it can be accessed by everyone. Just need to do more. So have a busy Thanksgiving week. Thank you for your attention. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Now,